Okay, well, let's start with Grandpa. Can you tell us a little bit about when you were born and your family and where you lived?
Well, my father always liked to brag that he says we were his children because we were born
Uh-oh.
we were born in the kitchen on a kitchen table because
Okay.
a meat market.
Is that right?
Yeah, where your father had his business.
Yeah, I don't remember much about that place.
Mm-hmm.
And how many brothers and sisters did you have?
Oh, I had we were three brothers and a sister. Yeah, I was the oldest, and we were all a year apart, except for my sister. She was 11 years younger than us.
Mm.
Was our baby sister.
That's kind of how, like Frank and Joanne.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
And what did your father do for a living?
My father was a butcher.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at one time we had a country store. We sold everything. Not only meats and Italian groceries and gloves and hats and flowers and Christmas trees. And my father sold everything we could make money on, make a living.
I didn't know about that. Now, when did he come to New York?
Yeah, well, he came to New York. Well, he was born in 1888, and he says he was 12 years old
When he came?
when he came here. And he was apprenticed to a German butcher who taught him the meat industry and also taught him the German ways. He liked German food.
Huh.
Well, he was brought up. That's the way it was in those days. You were apprenticed to a family, and they taught you the trade. And he liked and he spoke German also.
And what about your mother? When did she come to New York?
Well, she came when she was 14 years old, she said.
Mm-hmm.
And she's about the same age as my father. Was she?
Yes, she was.
Yeah, about the same age. She came when she was 14. And she wasn't too impressed with America.
Oh, she wasn't?
No, she loved where she was born in Sicily, in Menfrey, and they called themselves Little Parisians because the town was built on Paris' scale
Huh.
and grid.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they called themselves in Italian Parigini.
Now, her family, they were goat farmers?
Yeah,
Italy?
my grandfather owned goats, and he wasn't exactly a shepherd because they manufactured dairy products.
Oh,
They lived in a big 12-room house,
okay.
and from there they operated, they made ricotta and all kinds of cheese, and they went selling it from town to town. Donkey carts.
Wow.
That's interesting.
Now that's your grandfather on your
That's
mother's side.
My mother, yeah.
What did your grandfather on your father's side do?
I am not sure. I don't know. They never talked about.
Hmm.
He came by himself when he was 12?
No, he came here several times.
Oh, okay.
I remember my father telling us a story that he came to live with my father from Sicily. And the first day he was there, he wanted to know where the barn was. Where do you keep the foods? And my father says, this is America. We don't have a barn. He says, we don't store food. What if you have no money to buy foods? What do you do then? He was telling him. You know, came from a farm.
Uh-huh.
He expected to see a barn and food storage for the winter. I don't remember him, though.
When did so he would come to America and then he would go
And
back to
he'd
the
go
old
back,
country?
He didn't like America.
Mm-hmm.
So neither one of them liked
And
America.
finally he came back and he stayed and he died.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't too happy. Well, they didn't know the language. They couldn't make themselves understood.
Mm-hmm.
It was a hardship for them.
Mm-hmm.
So they never really learned.
And
the
also
language?
the Italians were discriminated against.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't,
Well, some even changed their name.
What types of discrimination did your father and you experience
well,
growing
in
up?
housing, you couldn't go into every neighborhood. They wouldn't sell or rent to you.
Mm-hmm.
And they ridiculed you. We were spaghetti benders. That's what they called us.
Oh, it's a nickname.
The Italians had a big heritage behind them. They were artists,
Yeah.
they were doctors and all, and nothing was available to them here in America.
No.
They became
Laborers. some of them.
laborers. Skilled people became laborers. You just wouldn't hire them for anything else.
Now, would pretty much in your butcher shop you served only Italians, or
No.
those same people who would discriminate against you would come and buy the good bread and the good meat that you guys provided?
Yeah, right. Well, we actually, during the Great Depression, there was no depression for us. We lived in a wealthy neighborhood, and my father had a business serving these people.
Mm-hmm.
And, there was no lack of money at any time. I used to feel sorry for my friends.
Mm-hmm.
We talk and they had nothing to eat. And if it wasn't for your father who gave us some bones, we wouldn't even had soup tonight.
Mm.
They would tell us.
Mm.
But we didn't experience that. We always had a car. We were middle class, upper middle class. We had money.
Do you think something like that could ever happen again, as far as the
Hopefully not.
depression?
I guess it's possible. I hope not. This was unbelievable. Half a dozen guys and it wasn't 10 cents between you.
Wow.
Mm. Hard time.
No money. But I didn't, nobody felt
Deprived.
deprived. Yeah, that's the word. We were all
Mhm.
happy, having fun, even though there was no money. We go to, hey, you'd like this, we go to all the church affairs. Because they had food.
Is that right?
They serve, yeah. That was
They were
that was
crashing.
a favorite thing to do.
What about your family, Grandma?
Well, all I know is my father was an immigrant also, and he came to America by himself after he was married and had a child. And sending, working here in America and sending money to my mother, thinking that, about a year or so, years time, 2 years, he would have enough money to go back to Italy
Mm-hmm.
and, continue his life. But he thought they were going to have money trees here. They had the impression there was money trees here in America, but that wasn't the case at all. He had 3 jobs at one time.
Wow.
Not one.
Yeah, your father
He was a very hard worker.
Yeah,
He really was. He was a laborer here, but originally in Italy, he was
He was a farmer. He owned
Mhm.
a farm.
He owned land. I don't know about the cattle, or maybe he might have had a donkey. I know that.
He did.
But
He
he-
always talked
But
about
he
it.
had olive trees and
Mm-hmm.
almond trees, and I don't know actually what he was growing in the land, what his crop was. Did you ever recall?
Well,
him saying?
wheat. Wheat was the big thing, yeah.
Because he had lots of conversations with
But you know what he would always say? He loved America. Your father liked it. And he says, there's only one trouble with America. Le femmine comandano. In Italian, that means the women are in charge. He didn't like that. He didn't like that.
Has time changed since then, or has
Oh,
it just gotten
absolutely.
worse?
It's no different in Italy than it is here.
As far as women being in charge,
They
it's-
still are. They own most of the money and they control everything.
Well,
Yeah, but in those days, women didn't have too much to say.
Mhm.
You know,
Women
it's a
can
man's
s-
world.
women can say a lot without saying anything, though.
Right, yeah, they can make it
you
do
better
things.
believe it.
When your dad had 3 jobs when he came to America, do you know what he did for
Well,
those
he was
3
a
jobs?
laborer, that's for sure.
Mhm.
And then he became a baker. He had an older brother. He was about 6 years older than him. And he was more of a, what I should say, he was, a speculator.
Okay.
And he took more chances, so to speak.
Well, he
Yeah.
dealt in real
He
estate.
dealt in real estate and he also had this bakery business.
Mhm.
His brother did, and he worked for his brother for some time, and then his brother wanted to get out of the business and go to other areas. My father took over the business and he made it on his own. And he worked very hard.
He was a hard worker.
Yeah, and he was well respected in the neighborhood. Everybody loved him because he's a very hard-working, sincere person,
Mhm.
which I was very proud to be his daughter.
And do you have any remembrances of his father?
Well, no, he
He never-
his father died when he was 2,
Okay.
so he, really had to make it on his own.
Mhm.
Whatever he had.
And his mother?
I remember his mother, which was my only grandparent that I knew. She died when I was 10 years old.
Mhm.
But she was a very religious person, and she
Mhm.
lost her husband at such a young age. She was in her 20s
Wow.
when she lost her husband. And that was in Italy. She
Mhm.
lost him. And he died, and
Did she come over to live with you? And
she did. She preferred to live with us because we had, my father and mother had 2 children. I had a sister. And she loved the atmosphere being amongst the children,
Mhm.
which made her happy. And she was very religious and well respected in Italy as well, as when she came here. I mean, all I remember is my grandmother was always going to church.
Mhm.
Well, I
she's
have to
a
tell
very-
you about my mother's family. There were 10 children.
Is that right?
Yeah,
She came from a big
there
family.
were 10 children. And aunts and uncles. That's why I got so many cousins in Sicily. That if you go, they'll welcome you.
Oh, you should make that stop.
Yeah.
Well, you have to know that they're a Sciara family.
Because our family supported them in Italy. We always sent them things, money, supplies,
Packages
clothes,
all
everything.
the time.
Because they were needy, they needed it.
My
And
mother.
they haven't forgotten that.
And my mother-in-law went as far as sending the wedding dress of my Aunt Jo, the wedding dress of her daughter, to Italy, with all, amongst other things, for them to use for their affairs there, They were very needy, so she did as much as she could for them, sending them money. We all did. Every year, every holiday, she would make a collection of all of us in the family. We all chip in and send the money.
Tell us about your mother, Grandma.
My mother,
Mhm.
well, my mother came to America after the Second World War. 'Cause the war broke out while my father was here, and he wasn't able to go back to his homeland anymore.
Mhm.
So as soon as the war was completed and ended, my mother was on the first ship that came to America. And she was a lovely woman. Yeah, I have very fond memories of her, even though I lost her when I was 15. And she was a nice woman.
How long did it take for your father to, between him coming and then her following after the war? How many years was that? Do you
It might
recall?
have been about 4 years.
Wow.
They were separated.
Hmm.
I believe it was 3 or 4 years at least. And that was a long time, you know.
Yeah.
'Cause she had a little girl, which was my sister. And when she came to America, she was 6 years old. So it could have been about that.
Did she mostly do domestic work as far as
Oh,
raising the girls and
she
keeping the house, or did she help your father with the business as
She
well?
helped my father with the business, and also I remember her sewing buttons on pants. She would take homework in
Mm-hmm.
and sew buttons on pants, and we would deliver them to her, and she would. I still have a spool of thread that when she was sewing buttons on pants.
Wow.
And your father remembers that, because I always pointed that out to him, and he remembers when he sees that spool. That's, you know, it's really something that's unusual.
Mm-hmm.
And then you helped your father in the bakery when you got
I
to be a
did.
teenager?
I really helped.
And
him.
your sister too?
My sister, not as much as I did.
Yeah.
She was a dressmaker, and she went to you know, she was trained for that. She went to special school for 2 years to learn dressmaking, and she was very professional. And she worked in a factory on dresses. And I helped my father in the store, in the business. And I always was amongst people, and I loved people. And I remember, you know, serving the customers on Sunday morning. I'd go to church first, and then I'd be rushing, one of the first ones to rush out of church when the service was over, just to put on my white apron, white smock with a little tea apron in the front, and serve the customers that were coming in. That I lived about a block away from the church, and all the people would be coming in, buying their bread.
Well, I gotta tell you about when I first started going out with her. My friend says, "Who is this girl?" I said, "She's the baker's daughter," and they tease me. She's got some crust. She's in the dough, and Mary would say, "Upper crust."
Well, I was well respected.
Yeah, they would tease me about it. Who is this girl?
How did you guys meet?
We met through my first cousin, let's say name as I did, married a mom's sister,
All right.
and that's how we became acquainted.
So did you know each other before the war?
Yeah, off and on, family get-togethers, we see yourself occasionally.
But then
The
after
big
the war.
romance was after the war.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we didn't correspond or anything. But I knew his family very well, and I said, "Oh, what a nice family that is. Oh, what nice people they are." And not knowing that someday I would be related to them, you know.
So it was in the same neighborhood? You both grew up in around the same area? Or
Not too far from
No,
each
yeah.
other. But my sister was related to him before I was related to him.
she was
But
married
he
She was
married
married
to
to
my
his
first
first
cousin,
cousin, who
which
had the exact same name. They were first
So
So
cousins.
you both married John Sciara?
Right. and
Exactly. And we lived in the same house at one time.
Well,
A
that
two-family
must have
house.
got confusing
It
sometimes
was
with
when
the
we
mail.
received
It
the
was very
mail.
confusing.
It was.
Grandpa, what first attracted you to Grandma?
Uh-oh.
Be honest
Well,
now.
I had my aunt says to his, "That's the girl for you, John." He says, "She's wonderful, she's a good cook, and she's attractive, and there's somebody else after her, and you better act quickly."
Was that true? There was
It
somebody
was.
else?
Wasn't
There
it?
was.
Yeah, isn't it? She's trying to,
So the pressure was on, huh?
yeah, but I like what I saw.
Yeah.
There was a big attraction there.
And what did you think about Grandpa, Grandma?
Well,
Besides him having a nice family, or was that all he brought to the table?
it was a mutual feeling.
Uh-huh. Where'd
They
you...
loved you. My mother loved you.
Oh, yes, and I loved my mother-in-law. Oh, she loved me like you wouldn't believe.
Mhm.
And that's such an unusual thing. Such an unusual thing.
Where did you guys go on your first date?
Do you remember that?
You might have gone bowling. Bowling.
Took you to
I
a
remember
nightclub.
you wanted to put my.
Uh-oh.
They took
my
you to
book.
a nightclub in Brooklyn, I remember
I
that.
remember him
And it
wanting.
was risque.
Uh-oh.
Oh, boy.
It was all
You
girls.
embarrassed.
You guys went dancing in the
It
nightclub?
wasn't much of a dancer. We just
No.
watched the show and ate,
No,
you know.
we went with a group.
The
Uh-huh.
showgirls and all the jokes weren't that.
Risque for me. I was embarrassed to death.
So back then, though,
Yeah.
people dated in groups more? Did you go out, or did you go by
No,
yourself?
just by
We went out
ourselves.
by ourselves, but sometimes we get together. I remember.
I had a lot of friends growing up, but the World War took care of that. It decimated everybody on my block. I know when I come back, there were a few of us left. Yeah, I had to make friends all over again. I didn't have it.
Yeah. But all your brothers, they were in the war, and they all
They were.
came back.
Yeah, they all came back.
Yeah. And you all got married about the same time, didn't
Not
you?
Within 14 months of each other.
All four of
The
us.
whole four of us.
Wow.
My mother-in-law was embarrassed to send out invitations. One was married in February, the first one, Uncle Steve and Aunt Marie, married in February. The second one was Uncle Charlie, the one that passed away. Uncle Charlie and Jeanette. And then we were married in October of that same year, in October. And then his sister, who was the little one, she was married.
Silas found this for you.
Okay. Thank you,
She
Simon.
was married 6 months to the day after us. So that was 14 months.
Tell us a little bit about your wedding.
Oh,
Football wedding?
don't go in
You want to talk about it?
It was a football wedding, which you probably,
Explain.
I don't know whether you ever heard of a football
No.
wedding. We made sandwiches. And that's what we were serving, sandwiches and dessert and coffee and cream puffs and all kinds of Italian pastry
Mm-hmm.
were being served. But the sandwiches were wrapped up that I don't know if we made them ourselves or we had
No,
them
we
done.
bought
We had bought them already made, but they were all individually wrapped. So they were handed out to people, and you know, instead of I don't think they were labeled, but you had to open them up slightly to see what was in it, and then if you didn't like what you saw, or if it wasn't to your liking, let's say it was ham and cheese, and you wanted a roast beef sandwich, well, you would chuck it to somebody else that
That
wanted
wanted-
it,
yeah,
and that
you
was the
swap.
that was the way.
And you see them flying around. Hey, it's catch it.
And they
you
were
throw
throwing
it in there.
sandwiches to each
And
other.
that's why they called it a football.
Weddings sure have changed nowadays.
Well, it's
Oh, yes.
different. Yeah, it's very this wasn't sophisticated. We had a band,
Yes, we have music.
we had music, and we had a lot of people that I didn't know.
Oh, the whole neighborhood turned out for
Yeah.
us because we were well known in the neighborhood. We were there for so many years. Church was full.
Even without sophistication, it must have worked, footballs and all, because it's been over 50 years now, so
Yeah,
must have done something right on that
well,
day.
you know, I always tell it. When people say, how did you do it? It wasn't easy.
He has the same line all
Yeah,
the
I
time.
would say it wasn't easy. I got a friend of mine tells me, he says, I don't say it wasn't easy. I tell them I obey.
What is some marital advice you can give young couples who are just starting out?
It's
How to make it work?
Well, we have to love and respect each other and be very truthful to one another and pray that everything turns out right.
and really, you gotta compromise.
That's
That's
the
the
word.
big, yeah.
That's the big thing. Compromise.
You gotta compromise.
don't
You
think
can't
that-
have it your way all the time.
That's right. Don't think that you're always right.
Right, you gotta deal. Make deals.
Tell me about the significance of the date that you got married.
Oh,
Oh.
yeah, you remember that,
Oh
don't
yes.
you? Why we selected October the 13th?
Well,
Because at that time, it was right after the war, and all the catering halls were booked for a year in advance. The only one that was available was the 13th. Nobody wanted that. It was unlucky.
nobody wanted that date. We really didn't want to get married that soon, but I guess in a way it was good because
The
He was-
date was available, and that was the only date that was available for a year.
Is that right?
Yeah, at that time. All others were, you had to make a date a year later. 13th was
I
available.
knew he'd want to wait another year.
Pick the 13th.
So he says, why not? I'm not superstitious.
Yeah, that was
Worked out well.
How long was it between when you decided to get married and you got
Quick.
married? Not
Wasn't
too
it?
long?
Well,
6 months.
we were engaged on May 26th, 1946.
She
And we got
remembers
married
all the dates.
October 13th,
So,
1946.
yeah,
Yeah, so it wasn't
that
too
wasn't
long.
long, right?
About 6 months.
That sounds like you enjoyed it.
Less than that. But we had started going out.
Yeah.
You gave me the bum's rush.
In December, we started going out in December of 45. And it was right before Christmas, about 2 weeks before Christmas. I says, well, what should I do? Should I give him a gift? I said, no, I'll never give him a gift unless he gives me one first. So I had a gift ready for him. Gave him a wallet.
So you gave him a wallet. That means
his
he
ini-
must have said gave you
Li-
something too.
Yes, he did.
I
He
did.
did. I still have the pin he gave me.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And
Pin in
the
earring.
wallet,
And
tell them about the
the
wallet.
wallet, I had his initials engraved on it. And I says, well, it won't be a total loss. In the event he doesn't give me something, I'll give it to my brother-in-law who
Yeah,
has
the
the
same
same
thing
name.
as I did.
Grandpa, did you
Good.
volunteer to go into the service or were you drafted?
I was drafted, but might as well volunteered. My number was 26. I was one of the first ones to get in. And I was looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't upset about going, you know. It's a new experience.
Hmm.
Now, what did you do before you went into the army?
It was help my father in the
Work
meat
in the
market.
bakery market? And how old were you when you got drafted?
26.
26.
I was one of the older guys. Well, when I was drafted, they didn't need soldiers, they needed manpower. We did all the dirty work. We dug ditches, we painted, we constructed, we worked in railroad yards. They needed a cheap labor force, and they got us for $21 a month. I learned a lot. I remember I was working near a black guy on the railroad tracks unloading cars. Well, I was digging a ditch. He says, you're not going to have a back if you dig that way. And he showed me how to dig a ditch.
But you bring it back.
He says, you got to use
Yeah.
your arms. You can't go back and forth.
Use the
You
raw
know,
muscle.
He used to complain to me he didn't make enough money. You're making twice as much as I did, I tell him.
your brothers, did they get drafted in the beginning as well, or?
Yeah, they were soon after me.
Did you ever serve with them, or you never
No,
saw
we
them?
never
They
did.
separated.
We met several times at different camps.
Oh, you did?
We were, we visited each other.
Yeah.
Now, back then, I know in Vietnam they tried not to take all of a mother's sons. Did they do that? Consider that
No,
in World War
I
II?
don't think that was considered.
They just as any manpower, and whenever
Yeah,
it
but-
came up.
I
In my
remember
company,
when
we
they-
didn't have any brothers.
Hmm.
There were no brothers in mine, but there were in other companies.
Do you remember the
Mhm.
Sullivan
The
brothers?
Sullivan brothers, 5 of them, one
Five.
shift.
boys were all together?
Wow.
And they got sunk and they all died. And that's when
It's
stopped.
devastating.
That policy
Oh.
For
was
the
changed.
parents, the whole family wiped out.
Hmm.
It's so sad. So sad. Ever since then, I never forgot it. Sullivan boys.
Now, your time in the service, Grandpa, you said you dug ditches and unloaded cars. What are some other jobs that they had you do while you were there?
Well, I was a meat cutter.
Hmm.
And my other job was, my main job became, I was the company commander's bodyguard. The order came up that every commander needed a bodyguard. He was to be with him all the time, wherever he went. And that was my job, to sit with him.
Did you like it?
Well, it wasn't a bad job, but this company commander that I had, he used to go traveling at night, which was dangerous, and it cost him his life. And it's not my fault, I tried to protect him. We went into a checkpoint, the MPs were there, he said, you can't go any further. He was a captain, so he overrode. He says, I'm going in. He says, that road is under protection, under surveillance by the Germans. So the driver of the Jeep, me and Teddy, said, we're not gonna go, Captain, we're telling you, don't go, it's dangerous. He says, you're yellow, I'm going. 2 minutes later, you hear the machine guns go off.
Mm.
So that saved your
And,
life.
well, we tried to, but, he was the captain, and then his mother, his parents wrote to me, wanted to know what happened. I wouldn't tell them exactly what happened. I just said that we came under enemy fire, and that was it,
Yeah.
in the Jeep. He was driving the Jeep and he went.
Do you think the driver would have went with them if you would have went?
I'm not sure. Teddy, he was obstinate. He told him the MP says you can't go. It's too dangerous, and he insisted.
How many commanders did you end up guarding during
Well, I
the
had 2
war?
of them. Another one was shot in the leg by somebody in the company.
Oh, no.
I'm sure of that, because we were under strafing and we were under a bridge, and the bullets couldn't hit us, but he got shot in the leg by somebody that was there.
Wow.
Now, I knew that, they were after him. He's a nasty guy. You can't be nasty with people who have guns. I
So,
did 2 of them.
What's some of the places that you saw when you were there?
Most of the times, we never knew where we were at.
Oh, really?
We were the first, the 22nd Infantry that I was in, 4th Division. We landed on Utah Beach.
Huh.
And we were the first troops in Paris, liberated by the 22nd Infantry. And, I was all over Europe. I was in the Bavarian Alps, Luxembourg, remember that? Belgium. You name it, Ardennes. And the
France too, weren't you France?
Hmm?
Weren't you France too?
Oh, all over France.
Mm.
St. Louis breakthrough, big breakthrough. I don't remember any of the details.
Were you ever given orders that you just couldn't or wouldn't obey during the war?
Yeah, there was some of them, yeah. Especially when we burnt down about a dozen towns. I didn't like that because there was just a handful of soldiers that caused all this trouble for us. And most of them were women and children, and old people. The soldiers weren't there,
Yeah.
the regular army, and we destroyed them. That was, I didn't like that. They gave us fire grenades and all, and we burnt these towns down. And also, we got an order, this is unbelievable, don't take any prisoners.
Wow.
We don't know what to do with them, if you take them, you feed them.
And that was the reason why they said that, because the food shortage?
We're getting short of things.
Mm-hmm.
There was a breakthrough into Germany, and supplies couldn't keep up. I was in an anti-tug company, I wasn't an infantryman. I belonged to the infantry, so it was a little easier for us. The infantryman is the one who really suffered, the guy with the rifle. He's all the attacks in the foxholes. Terrible life for them.
Did you ever witness the concentration camps, or?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Can't forget that. We liberated a couple of them, all these starved out people. We would throw our cans from our K rations, and there was always food left in there, and they'd come up and follow the camp and pick out the food with their fingers and eat it. We were starving.
Starving.
Do you remember what concentration camps those
I
were,
don't
Grandpa?
remember.
Mm-hmm. Did everybody pretty much have the same attitude as you did as far as sharing their rations and helping those people as far as the soldiers were concerned?
Yeah, we did. They all wanted cigarettes, and after a while, we didn't have any for ourselves. We gave them all away. Chocolates that they came in our rations, we gave them to the little kids.
Yeah.
They used to follow us, and we give it to them.
What happened to the Germans who were guarding those? Did they vacate the concentration camps before you got there, or
Yes.
did you guys deal with them
No,
right there?
there was no resistance.
Mm-hmm.
They left before we got there. They abandoned the camps.
Mm-hmm.
So did the Americans have to feed all these people?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
We had to take care of them.
Tell us about your rations. How did they feed you over there? Sometimes good, sometimes bad?
We had K rations.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we ate. And in a lull, when we were resting, we'd eat with a service company, they called it, that would feed us, service company. And the rations were, they weren't that great, but it was food. We ate it. We were hungry.
Did you ever have a chance to use your skill as a meat cutter on some meat while you were there?
Yeah, we did. Poor cow got in our way. We slaughtered them, and we cooked them and ate them.
What did the owner think of that?
They didn't like it. These were the French. We was killing their livestock, allies.
Yeah.
One of them used to tell, one of them says, "Why take my cattle? This guy's got 3 of them up the road." One of his. I remember that. And when we went into Germany, they all had cellars stocked with bacon and ham.
Wow.
Oh, we raided them. And everybody was cooking ham, bacon, eggs.
Did you have to be careful about some of the food left around in the towns that you were liberating?
Yes, because the Germans would poison them.
Mm-hmm.
That was in the beginning. They left cheeses and foodstuffs. And some soldiers got sick on it because it was poisoned. So we were very careful about that.
Mm-hmm.
If it was too obvious. They left booby traps.
What type of booby traps?
Well, we had one of them. I played ball with it. It looked like a Christmas ball.
Mhm.
And we started throwing it around. Finally, somebody dropped it and it exploded. Poor guy, I don't know what happened to him. He was taken away. This is what they would do.
That's some of the feelings you had, just seeing people all around you dying and knowing it could have been you. Because if you wouldn't have held on to that ball and threw it, that very likely could have been you.
It could have happened, right, it could have been me. And we were very careful of seeing anything too obvious.
Mm-hmm.
You know, something that attracted you. You knew it was booby trapped. They had booby traps all over. You pick up a mine here, and half a dozen other mines that go off around you. They were smart, the Germans. We learned from them.
Mm-hmm. So you'd find bacon and things in cellars. Did you ever find any stockpiles that the Germans were trying to hide from you?
Yep. In Bavaria, there was a train station that was all locked under lock and key. You know, that made us suspicious. What's in there? So we called in our mine platoon. They're the ones who had all the explosives. And they said, let's blow this place up, see what's in there. And we blew up the station and the door leading into a basement. And it was full of French liquor.
Wow.
And that night was a mess. all you could see is soldiers walking around with bottles. The war could just as well start. If they attacked then, they were the slaughterers.
You didn't help yourself, Danny, did you, Grandpa?
You had some. That's the way the mine platoon did it. They didn't want to attract too much attention. So they got some mattresses, put it up against the door to muffle the sound. But you heard it all around.
And word spread fast.
Oh, did it? Everybody walking around, feeling good.
So, Grandma, what were you doing during the war?
I was working. I wasn't writing to any, well, I didn't want to get involved with anybody.
Yeah.
Because I felt, you know, they may come back with one leg or two, or no legs.
Yeah.
So I just was playing neutral.
Yeah.
I gave blood during the war. I felt that's the least I could do. That's about it.
How did the country change during that time?
Oh, changed. Well, it's lonesome for everybody. There's, it seemed like the mode was very quiet throughout the areas, you know, when people got together. It was like a mournful situation, you know. It wasn't just happy.
Was your brother-in-law, did he go?
He went,
So your sister was
sister's
by
husband,
herself, too.
for a short time, but he got out real quick.
Got a nervous breakdown.
That's what he did.
Everybody can't take this.
Couldn't take it. And she came to live with me while he was in the service. She was married, you know, but then
Yeah.
she came back home. She didn't wanna
Yeah.
live alone. Yeah, it was bad situations.
Did he recover once he was back? Or was he never the same?
I don't really know for sure, but it seemed like he was very sickly. He was very sickly. He wasn't, actually, I think it had an effect on him.
I think it
A
did.
lasting
It
effect,
affected.
a lasting
Yeah.
effect.
And then he died at a young age.
And he died at a very young age.
Nobody in our family dies at 55.
And he left. My sister became a widower and she had a boy who was 15 also.
Mm.
We were very close, my sister.
My
Because that's all I
cousin
had.
was, John was very handsome,
Oh,
tall,
he looked like Cary Grant.
handsome,
You
yeah.
know Cary Grant?
Very attractive guy.
Mm.
Yeah.
And he was
He's a good man.
he was a foreman for the sanitation.
Did the role of women change during the war as far as their duties and their jobs?
Yeah. Well,
Well, they changed. They supported the war effort.
yeah,
They
that's
joined,
right.
they were in
Because I
the
said to myself, I don't,
factories and all. They didn't change from
Mhm.
what I heard.
Mhm.
I worked in an office, an insurance company in Manhattan, and, you know, I had a few co-workers that we used to go out, like on a Friday night, but where did we go? Go out to dinner or to a movie, not much of anything else. I wouldn't do anything else than that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I lived with my father.
Now, Grandpa, did you and all your brothers come home at the same time?
No, different time. My brother was wounded in action. He was missing in action for months in Africa, and he was picked up by the English and sent to England, and nobody knew where he was.
Oh.
The communication. So later, 6 months later, he's still living. We heard from the Red Cross.
It must have been a big relief.
Oh, absolutely, for my mother, sure, all of us.
Yeah.
Imagine having 3 sons and all 3 sons in the service, not knowing, you know, where they are, what's happening to them.
So he got sent home early. He was severely wounded. He had 2 machine gun bullets through his chest, and pieces of shrapnel in his spine.
And it remained with him. They couldn't
They
operate.
could not, at that time, they couldn't.
How did that affect his health and quality of life?
It affected his walking. He
Limping.
walked like I did. It affected him.
Mhm.
It didn't affect him mentally,
Mhm.
No.
but physically it did.
So, who was the first to come home?
My brother Charlie, he was,
He's the youngest.
I come back second. I come back because I had a lot of points before the war ended.
You said a lot of points.
Yeah, they had a point system to let you out of the service.
How did you earn the points?
Well, by the time,
Time to put in.
it's the campaigns you were in and time served
Mhm.
determined it.
So did you come back before the war was actually over?
Yeah, I came back about, I would say, a month or 2 before the war.
Okay.
Yeah.
But things were probably heading that way.
Well, they were sent, yeah,
We're
but
heading that
they
direction.
weren't that generous. They were gonna send me to Japan if that
Oh.
didn't happen. I wasn't discharged, they just brought us back to the
Yeah.
States.
And then your brother Steve came back with you.
He did, yeah.
Yeah, that must have been some reunion when everybody was home.
We had a big party down in the basement where we lived.
Yeah.
Did you get to serve with anybody that you knew from the neighborhood, or run into anybody when you were out? And
Yes, I did. I can't forget this customer of ours, this young kid, about 18. I'm out there and there's somebody calls out, "Hey, Butch!" And I look up and it's him, and he's having a ball with his gun, rifle, shooting at anything, anywhere. He's happy. And he got killed that day. And after I come back, his family came to the butcher store to find out how he was. He says, the last letter we got from him was that he met you. Tell us about it. Yeah, that was
Sad
sad.
situation, sad times.
Were things different after you got back? Or you kind of resumed what you had been doing before that?
Well, you know, I really didn't want to go. I could have gone to school
Yeah.
under the GI plan. I chose not to. My father needed me.
Yeah.
He wasn't well, and the business was there, and it was thriving. He needed help, so I stayed with him.
Did any of your brothers
Out of
choose the
obligation,
same?
more or less, like you didn't want to.
Well, they went to school. Well, my brother was a school teacher. Again,
Steve.
Charlie, he went to school. He got his degree.
Then what was his
Yeah, I know.
profession?
He was what was it? A warehouse manager.
Hmm.
Worked for the telephone company.
And what about Uncle Phil? Was he in the service
He
too?
was in the
Oh,
service. Yeah. He was in Europe someplace. Exactly what he did. I think he was a radio operator.
And so then after that, there was a rash of weddings.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I had to book a place 2 years in advance for mine.
And then a handful of babies, huh?
Oh,
Did
let
Oh,
the babies
that's the
start
baby
coming.
boomers
Yeah.
start coming.
Yeah.
Your father is one of them.
He was the first grandchild.
On both sides, huh? Well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. He was the first one. A little Uma.
Did they spoil him?
Oh,
He was
was he
spoiled. He was a pip.
He was really got everything.
Remember when we
was
came back from Florida a day early?
Oh, yeah.
And we had the biggest party in our house you ever saw. With Frank doing all the
That was
cooking,
when he
all
was
his
a
friends.
teenager.
You know, he didn't expect
Yeah.
us until the day after. He said, what are you doing here?
Oh.
So he had thrown a party while you
Yeah,
guys
while
were
we were
gone,
there.
and you walked in on it.
Yeah, well, we called him from New Jersey, I think we were on our way home. And we told him we were coming home tonight. And I says, what are you doing? He says, I'm making, veal cutlet parmesan, spaghetti, and, you know, all kinds of things for his friends. I think he's at home doing all his thing.
All these guys in there, they all left, I think. Did they leave?
I think they had gone when they knew the time he arrived. He loved to cook, you see.
Yeah, he always did.
Well, that was the only thing I liked about our restaurant was that Frank learned.
Mhm.
Learned
Got
his trade.
interested, learned,
Whereas I thought he was gonna be an artist. You know, he had such a flair for
he did.
graphic arts and all that.
Yeah.
He had the opportunity to go, and he wouldn't.
He went to Manhattan. We had him enrolled in the Manhattan school. And then after one day, he says, you know, I can't go traveling to Manhattan. I said, what do you mean? He says,
School of Visual Arts.
Yeah.
It's a famous school.
yeah, and one of my neighbors, her son went there, and he did very well. Very well. I mean, your father was really talented.
Yeah.
Really was. Absolutely.
So he says I need a car. I don't want to go to college. I gotta make money. So I bought him a car. I said, you go to college, I'll buy you a car. And he went for 1 or 2 days, and he quit. And I took the car away from him.
Never
I said,
forgot.
that was our deal.
Yeah.
I said, you go to college and you get a car. If you don't, I want my car back. Didn't take it away.
What kind of car was it? Do you remember?
Do you remember what it was?
He
You
had so
probably
many.
remember.
He had dozens of cars.
Well, this is the one I gave him.
I know.
I forgot what it was.
But, We had to keep
life.
our promise, I mean, that was
Yeah.
why, you have to keep your promise, that's it. You promised him a car, we gave it to him, but he didn't keep his, so
Yeah.
it didn't work out. But he knows, he realized after he had his own children, what it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
No, he's his dad, you did everything right.
He called me up from Florida one time and told me that he was at some kind of a seminar, how to become a parent, you know, what parents' duties are and this and that. And he says, Mom and Dad, says, you did everything right by me. Called me up to tell us.
Now, when he was young, he was a picky eater, huh?
Oh, yes, he was, yeah. Until he was
Well,
about 7
for a
years
while,
old,
yeah.
it seemed like it was so hard to get some food in.
You see these kids that they show on TV starved out with their ribs showing. That's the way he was. He
Oh,
wouldn't
boy.
eat.
He wouldn't eat.
He'd drive us nuts.
I would prepare as many as
And
four,
we
four
took
different
him-
things.
We
at one
took him to
sitting.
the doctor, and I says, all he likes is frankfurters. Just give it to him 3 times a day. He says, he's gotta get food in him.
No matter what he likes, give it to him.
Give it to him.
Day in
If
and
it's
day out until he
frankfurters,
gets
he just
started.
give it to him.
At least he has nourishment.
Well,
Yeah.
the ribs were showing, then you think, today, we would have been bad parents, they would have got us for neglect.
But you couldn't get, so he could have had any cut of meat he wanted from
Oh,
the
yeah.
It
butcher
was always
shop.
right. We had the
I used to
machine
give
did it.
him lamb chops for lunch and anything.
Yeah.
As long as he would eat, I didn't
Beef
care what-
tea, how much beef
Yeah,
tea
yeah, I
you
made
make?
beef tea for them too. Cutting up little pieces of beef, you know, in little tiny pieces and put a little water in it and let it steam a little while and all the juices come out of the meat. And give them just the
Yeah,
meat,
build 'em
the
up,
juice alone would sway back.
But he
Uh-huh.
changed.
Mm.
After about 7, he
Started eating.
started eating. Changed.
Now, did you take over your father's shop,
Yeah, I did.
and then he retired,
Yeah. That's right.
and you lived in Brooklyn then?
Yeah.
Until he was 2.
Uh-huh.
Until he was 2. And then we moved around the stream. About 25 years, that's where we lived.
And most of the family lived around there, or did they move different places?
You mean my father?
Well,
or-
just the extended family.
Oh, well, sure, we had a distance away, you know.
Not far.
Not too
We used
far.
to visit a lot.
Not too
Yeah,
much.
you
We
get
always
together
got
Later
together.
on, we
Oh,
started.
yes, every holiday we were together, you
Yeah.
know, and in between too.
Mhm.
My mother-in-law and father-in-law would visit, as first grandchild, they'd go stay away, oh no. They would
Yeah.
come very often, and my father would be behind the door with the door wide open, ready to greet them, that he was so happy that they would come, you know. It
They
was
would
nice.
play cards.
They were
My
nice,
father and
nice
mother.
relationship. you
And
know.
and they'd argue about cards.
Yeah, it's nice.
I know my father was very fond of your father, but he lived with you,
Yeah,
so he probably
Yeah.
saw him
yeah,
more often.
he.
Well, even at that,
Till
you
he was
know,
Till he was 11, you know.
my father lived in New Jersey with my sister.
Oh, okay.
And
In the same
he's,
house.
and your father's the only one with his staying track.
Oh,
So when he died, you know, he lived with his nephew, with his grandson
With
Phil.
Bill,
uh-huh.
He
Bill.
didn't leave him his car, he left it to your father.
Oh.
And his ring,
Yeah.
You know the story behind the ring. don't you?
yeah.
I know
Well,
part of
whatever,
the story. Why don't
he
you tell
left
the
it,
story?
he left him his car and his ring.
You still recording?
Because that was, you know, it was a very important apparently to him, that he had somebody named after him.
Yeah. Well, doesn't
And,
sound
you know, I think I discussed it with you, I says, he should have left it to Phil.
Yeah,
who
well,
he
we
grew
probably
up
left
with,
him something
with
else. Maybe he had a watch.
I don't know, but he lived, you know, that was his car and his ring, something of importance.
We were
to him.
surprised,
Yeah.
we never knew that before, you know, that this was gonna happen. You don't discuss it.
Yeah.
Do you think there was any hard feelings?
No,
No,
none,
there wasn't
none,
any.
none whatsoever.
So
No,
what
Phil's
happened
a
with the
good
ring?
I don't think you want that on tape.
Okay,
No,
let's
I
not
don't
put it
want
on
it on
tape. But we
tape.
have the ring.
Yeah, and that's when I gave it to your father,
Mm.
and,
It's too
he
complicated.
had, He had, it had a diamond and a ruby,
Uh-huh.
like this.
And he had brought it from Italy? He had, did he have it since then, or did he?
I
You
always
don't
knew
know the
he had this
origin?
ring, and I don't know actually where he acquired it.
Yeah.
After he was married or bought it from Italy. Which I doubt if he bought it from
I
Italy at
doubt
12
it
years
too.
old.
Yeah,
He
probably
wouldn't have
not.
done that. And he had the two stones. One was a diamond and one was a ruby. So your father had it separated. And he took the ruby ring and made it into two rings instead of one.
Oh.
And the diamond, I think the mother should have it.
Mhm.
And the father kept the
Yeah,
ruby.
she said, that the diamond's supposed to be mine. She's
Oh,
gonna
she
give it
was?
to me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
good.
she said.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm happy.
Had made two rings out of the one. That was nice.
Yeah.
But
Wish I
now,
never had it.
but now, Grandpa, your Malibu's gonna have to go to John to keep a tradition.
Well, you know,
Oh, we have.
I don't know.
I tried to keep the tradition, really.
You were going to give him the other one.
I was giving John my other car.
Our
Yeah.
I
Buick.
promised it
We
to
had a
him.
Buick before
Mhm.
But in the meantime, my granddaughter,
that. Renee.
Renee,
Which is
she had no wheels.
Mhm.
You know,
She,
the
her
doesn't have
car
any money.
died
Mhm.
just at the time we
So I
bought
spoke to
ours.
John about it. I said, you don't have your license yet, but the car is yours. But this is the story with Renee. She has no transportation. She says, give it to her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice
She
kid.
needed
Yeah.
a car
He
so
said, she
badly.
needs it. I
She was
don't.
going to school. She's going to
And go
school,
to work.
college, and she was working. She needed
Yeah.
a car, and my
Sure.
son Charles was working on the car every time he had a day off. He was working on this car.
No, not my car. My car is
This was what was it? Begins with what?
well,
A Volvo car. She
Mhm.
had.
but that was so good of John.
Yeah, that was nice of him.
Yeah.
But I mean, we told him what
But
the
I
situation
promised to
was.
him and I was gonna keep it.
Mhm.
It's a predicament to be in, but you
Well,
don't want
I
to
just
disappoint
went by her
him,
a
but
car.
Uh-huh.
he'll get
Let's go.
Tell you a war story.
Okay.
I was the company commander's bodyguard, and I was selected to go to Monte Carlo, the French Riviera, for one reason, for a 2 weeks vacation.
Is that right?
So I could go there and get some cologne and bring it back to the company commander. That's the reason, yeah, they all want to know, how come you're going, you're going on a vacation for 2 weeks? He says, don't tell anybody, and he gave me the money, he says, buy all the cologne you can get. That's the reason
Now-
I got the vacation.
Now, what would a commander in wartime need cologne for?
Well,
Give
you're
to his
gonna say,
girlfriends.
well, you know, it was hard stuff to get during the wartime
Uh-huh.
in the States. He gonna send it to his wife.
Is that right?
If he had a wife.
Yeah.
That's something.
There was a lot of things
That's
were
why
rational.
you lucky guy. He's lucky. He's sending me there. I bought him some cologne. They had cologne factories.
Oh, yeah, Chanel number 5.
Now, Grandpa, what was the impressions that the younger guys would come in with? Because you were an older man at 26 at that time, and you had experienced a lot of war when some of these new guys were getting there. Did they know what they were getting into?
They absolutely had. They think they were going to a picnic.
It was adventurous for them.
Adventurous. They had no idea that the Germans were shooting real bullets instead of green balls, we could call them. They thought it was a big party. They'd come and they had to learn. They would expose us with the noise and the lights.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do that. And the cooking.
Is
They
that right?
all like to cook, all these young kids, and playing ball and football, and it rejuvenated the army. When they start getting 18 and 19-year-olds, it was a different army.
Yeah.
They used to march all day and they played football at night. It was rejuvenated.
Yeah.
Thought
with
they
the
were on a
young kids.
vacation.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, we had to watch them. We had to keep them from making too much noise and walking around with flashlights. You can't do that. You attract fire on you.
Be under control.
Yeah, well, they were hard to control. Young kids, Mary.
Now,
Young kids.
during Vietnam, did any of your sons desire to go to war, and what was your advice, or were any of them drafted, or?
Oh, Frank was.
Frank was all the others were exempt, except for Frank.
Because they were younger?
Yeah, they were younger,
Mhm.
and whatever reason, I don't know why Charlie never.
I don't think they would
He was
take
too
two
young.
sons
Yeah,
anymore,
this is what
too.
I think.
He was too young.
Yeah,
too.
he was too young.
Frank was about 18.
Yeah,
wasn't
they
he?
took Frank.
And Charlie was almost 3 years younger, so he was a little bit too young.
What did you tell your son before he went? Do you remember having a talk with him about what war's like, or?
I believe I did talk to him about it.
Mhm.
He didn't like war. He didn't
Mhm.
like shooting at people,
Mhm.
and he wasn't going to be a part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think about the war in Iraq that we're involved with now in 2004, soon to be
I
2005?
think the people were deceived. Maybe the president was deceived also. That this was an unjust war.
Mhm.
They found excuses. They knew what the story was. They didn't tell us the truth. They intended to go there one way or another.
Mhm.
You don't go to war that easy.
Mhm.
I think they fooled us. And I don't forgive the president or his administration
Mhm.
for that. The killing of innocent women and children.
Yeah.
Devastating the country for their own good.
Mhm.
Yeah. I didn't believe it.
Now, the military has a lot more technology and different combat techniques as when you were in, but the bottom line's the same. Everybody still bleeds red.
Yes.
Mhm. Tell us about your
So,
children.
when I hear about cruelty to prisoners, I'm not surprised. It happens in the war. It happens all the time.
Mhm.
There's always maltreatment of prisoners and people.
Mhm.
It doesn't come as a shock to me. I don't know why the media picked up on this prisoner abuse. It's part of war.
Mhm. You saw that in World War II.
Yes. It was all around. You take a guy who lost a brother or a cousin, he wasn't taking any prisoners.
Mhm.
We had some Germans gave up to us. Must have been about a dozen of them. We were taken into the prisoner compound, and some of the 101st Airborne troopers met us. He said, "What are you doing with these prisoners? Where are you taking them?" So come. He says, "We'll do it for you." 2 minutes later, we hear the machine guns go off, and they killed every one of them.
Mm.
And we said, "Well, what happened?" He said, "They tried to get away."
Hmm.
That was their excuse. But they weren't taking any prisoners.
Did they suffer losses earlier?
Oh, they did tremendous losses, did of course. What they didn't do, they hung them on trees, they executed them.
Mm.
So there goes your abuse. Everybody does it. War is terrible.
And that's a lot more serious than what we've seen in Abu Ghraib, the abuse that we see now.
Yeah, this is minor stuff
Yeah.
compared to what went on in the Second World War.
Almost
That's
like
minor.
college pranks.
Yeah, that's minor.
Do you think we should talk about your children before Frank gets here so you can be honest?
I'll be honest, no matter what.
Yeah. Who is your most difficult child?
You gonna take the fifth on that?
Yeah, I should.
Well, they're all grown now. I
They're
don't
all
think.
grown, and
Well, they all were a
and it
little
doesn't-
difficult
and they-
in their
and-
own way. You
Yeah.
know, they're all different. It's hard to
they're
compare.
all different, and they're all became
And,
very good.
and I'm proud of all my
They
children.
became very good adults and very good parents.
That's right.
Uh-huh.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
I'm proud
In
of each and
spite of,
every one.
well, you know, they're young. They met them with so
They're
many wild
influenced
oats.
by their friends a lot
Mhm.
as they're growing up, and this is what you have to watch for when you have children.
Mhm.
Be careful of their friends and make sure that you know who they are.
Mhm.
Invite them up the house and get to know them.
What were some trying circumstances that you guys faced as far as child rearing? We know that early on we had some picky eaters. You had teenagers probably in the toughest time in history to raise them during the
Yes.
60s.
Yeah, the
That's-
60s,
That's
right?
for sure.
It wasn't easy. Well, you know, you know, what to say. I think that a lot of this stuff was the parents' fault, why it was difficult.
Mhm.
Times has changed, and we expected the children to be heard, to be seen and not heard. They had no say about anything,
Mhm.
and that was wrong. We should have listened more
Mhm.
to what they had to say. I didn't. I was the father, I was the king, and what I said went, and that's not right.
But that's how you were raised by your father?
Yes, yeah, very strict.
Mhm. And do you think that there's a time when that's true, when a child's young, that they need to know who the authority is, but it's just knowing when to give them a say, as far as maybe when they are being young adults to give them more say, or
I
Yeah.
believe we should
Yeah.
give them more say and listen to them.
Mhm.
Be,
And try to
be
guide them.
considerate of their
and guide
feelings
them.
too.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
didn't.
Mhm.
Those were the times, that's the way people, parents acted then.
If you had to do things over again,
Yeah, we do it
Mhm.
differently.
you'd be a little bit more lenient with
Well,
them.
you'd
Mhm.
take even my mother learned, you couldn't be any stricter than that, my father and mother. But towards the end, when my grandchildren would come, and I would be unreasonable, she would tell me. She
Mhm.
would say, you can't talk to your children that way. He says, you gotta listen to them, they're adults. And she says, they're gonna resent you
Mhm.
if you don't listen to them.
You have to be more understanding of their
Understanding. This is
feelings.
my mother talking. Who was very, very strict.
She got to be
But she
more,
probably learned too.
Yeah.
she got to be modernized.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was very modern in her ways. I mean,
Yeah,
not to the
you
point
told
where
me.
she gave them too much freedom, but
Mhm.
more understanding, you know, of certain things.
Do you think
Her way of thinking.
that maybe the pendulum is shifted to the other side, where kids get away with too much nowadays, to where maybe in your generation they were too strict, and now
Yeah,
some parents aren't
yeah,
strict enough?
Very strict enough. Not
Especially
enough
a lot of
supervision.
working parents, a lot of
Mhm.
working
Yeah.
mothers, you know, they don't have the time to devote
devote,
and to
right.
teach them
Mhm.
Times have changed.
and to give them a
You
lot
know,
of
there's no
love and
school on how to
attention.
raise a family.
Mhm.
They might
how to
feel a
deal
little
with
bit
children.
neglected when I think when the parents are not home
Mhm.
a lot.
And when your children were young, you were always at home and
I
in
was
the
always
house.
there. I was always there, always
Mhm.
home when they came home from school. I'd make it my business to be home if I had chores to do, go out shopping or whatever. was always home.
Now, your daughter, does she stay home as well?
Oh, yes.
And so she saw that priority in you and her relationship, and she's taken that.
As a
And in-
role, yes.
Very
She
good.
is
Yeah,
a very
but-
good mother, and she's a good wife, and she's a good homemaker,
And
and
Uh,
she's
I would tell Joanne,
not being prejudiced that she's my daughter, but she's really, I'm proud of her.
well, you know, she, sometimes with my grandchildren, we're there with my daughter, we're discussing what she's doing. She says, first, you gotta get their attention so they can listen to you.
You
I
have to,
says, you know how my father used to get my attention? He said, "Kick me in the pants." And she
never heard
laughed
that.
about
I
it.
never heard that.
Yeah, I tell that to Joanne. She says, you can't tell the kids what to do. He says, you gotta get their attention.
Get
look
eye
in their eye.
contact, make eye contact first,
I says, my
and
father
then you
used-
tell them certain things that you want to put
Yeah.
across, you know?
My
Yeah.
father used to get her attention all right, in advance. The house. And Grandma would chase him with a broom. And they get underneath the bed, and Grandma would get the broom and stick it underneath the bed and push it back and forth to get him out.
Oh, Dad tells a story about how Uncle Charlie had got a cut or something. They were young boys, and he asked in the middle of the night, or I don't know, he asked to let him see it, and he rubbed salt in his
He
wound or
did
something.
that, yeah.
Oh,
And
he-
you got so
he
angry
was
with
some
him.
joker.
Yeah, he used to
But sometimes he
tease
carried it a
Charlie.
little bit too far.
He used to tease himself.
Mm.
And he was so gullible, he'd take, he believed everything Frank told him.
As I said, I was a disciplinarian, but I really didn't want to have all that responsibility.
Mhm.
But I had no choice. His father was working too late in the evenings, you know, and coming home late. And by the time he came home, it was all over.
Flip that switch. Can you flip that switch, Grandma, there?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you chase your kids around with a broom?
Not too much.
So now, what time did Grandpa usually go to work and come home?
I go to work about 7 o'clock in the morning, maybe earlier, and be home 7 o'clock at night or
Yeah.
later.
If everything went smoothly.
Or later, so you
If the
see, I
traffic
had him
was
on my
good.
hands all day long.
Yeah.
No relief.
What about on the weekends? Did you have the weekends together?
No, I worked 7 days.
7 days.
6
We only
days.
had Sundays.
Only Sundays.
Sundays, then I had I did all my own bookkeeping.
Oh, so you had work to do at home.
Yeah.
so-
It wasn't easy.
Yeah, that was when you had the butcher shop or
Yeah,
both?
I did
Everything. You know,
And
we
the
had the
pizza shop, too.
restaurant.
same thing.
The restaurant was 7 days a week.
Oh, that was,
That was even worse.
you had to be
But
born
you
in
helped
it.
him with that too.
I did.
Yeah.
I wasn't on the books though.
Yeah.
I wasn't on the books.
And so did your children worked with you as well, so even though you might not have been home, they could have been helping you there and you're spending time with them that
Oh,
way?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Good.
Hmm.
It was nice having them around. I enjoyed having them. It was a big treat having them, the whole family together. Because it didn't happen every night for dinner.
Hmm.
We always had dinner by ourselves. We wanted to wait, but that's much too late for children
Yeah.
to wait 7 o'clock, especially if they had school the next day.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And they weren't in school, it was a different story. But once they went to school, you had to put them on some kind of a routine.
Yeah. Was Grandma always a good cook, Grandpa?
Yeah, my mother.
No, that's
Uh-huh.
Grandma.
Yeah, she's a great cook.
Even when you first got married?
Yes.
Because you had all the practice taking care of your dad.
She,
Well, my first Christmas dinner, a Thanksgiving dinner, I should say, I had his mother and father, his sister with the boyfriend, my sister with her husband, and her mother-in-law and father-in-law and her
she never forgets
brother-in-law, her brother-in-law, he was a single fellow, and my father and I, well, we count them all. I had them all for my first Thanksgiving dinner, which was a month after I was married, 6 weeks to be exact, after I was married. So I must have had a lot of practice before then.
Yeah, and you pulled it off pretty well.
I did.
Now, what about his mother? She was a good cook?
Oh, definitely.
Did she teach you some things?
I
or-
did learn from her. I can't say I didn't. I did, and I looked up to her as my role model. I wanted to be just like her. She was really a great woman.
But she didn't speak too much English, huh?
Oh, she did broken
Good.
English, but
Yeah.
we got along
She-
well.
And she could read and write English.
Oh,
She went
really?
to school.
Oh, did she?
She's not Italian, but English, yeah.
Yeah.
Went to school to learn English. Which was nice.
She could have been
She
very
wanted
smart.
to improve herself.
You know, if they had the opportunity to go to school, she would have been a smart woman.
Yeah.
What were the schools like when you were young? And how far did they expect people to
It
go?
was reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they concentrate, and penmanship, scribbling up and down. And nobody expected you to go to high school. They expected you to go to work.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
And that's what both of you did?
No, we graduated from high school.
Is that right?
Mhm.
And so you were considered highly educated
Oh, I
for
thought-
having
well,
to
I
do
went, I went at night. I graduated from Brooklyn Boys High
Mm.
at night.
So-
you worked during the day with your
Yeah, I
father?
worked with my father. He needed me. My father was not well.
Yeah.
Now, was that a desire of yours to be educated, or did your father find that important and influenced you in working during the night to get your diploma?
Well, I don't think he influenced me one way or the other. He needed me
Mm-hmm.
in the store. And it wasn't easy to go to school and work in the store. Because the hours were long
Yeah.
to begin with.
But
But I enjoyed going to school. at
that was what
night.
you wanted to do.
Yeah, I wanted to go, and it was an outlet for me.
Mm-hmm.
Met all the guys, and, it was fun.
Did your father put a priority on education too, as well
I
as
think,
Grandma?
he emphasized it.
Oh, yes, he
Yeah.
did.
So he wanted to make sure you graduated high
Yeah.
school.
Yeah, he emphasized.
Did you ever think of going to a trade school like your sister did?
I would have wanted to, but I think I was more lending towards being in office work.
Yeah.
Well, she was a great typist. How many words a minute you type?
Oh, you were.
You remember everything.
Grandma's modest.
Well, I did all right. I got a job at an insurance company in Manhattan.
Yeah.
Worked there for 4 years until I was married,
And your sister made your clothes, right?
and my sister made my clothes to wear, which were really very professional looking. I like that. I was very fortunate. I really felt real lucky to have her as my older sister because she did a lot in that respect. I took care of the house more or less.
Yeah.
Did the cooking.
You got a favorite child?
I'm sorry?
Have you got a favorite child that's your favorite?
Should I stop taking?
I hope not.
No,
I
yeah,
try
that's what
not
we
to.
say that.
We try not to have favorites, but down deep in your heart, you know who your favorite is.
I was my mother's favorite and embarrassed me.
She
and
told.
I would tell her.
We know about it, because she
I would
she
tell
told.
her, I says, I don't want you to treat me so good in front of my brothers and sisters, because they all know that I'm treated special. I says, don't do that, Mom.
Did that ever influence her? Did she ever
No,
stop?
she kept right at it.
Until
Even
today.
after I was married, she said,
Until-
she'd holler at her. I says, you let him alone. He says, he looks good in anything he wears.
Like if I would say, don't wear that shirt today, you should change it or do
She'd
something.
always defend me. So there was favoritism there.
But until
I
today,
got away with a lot.
his sister is telling us this story only recently. Do you know that you were Mom's favorite?
Yeah, I know all about it.
They
I
all know
discussed
about
with
it.
her.
That's embarrassing, you know?
I thought it was, well, you know, I don't want my brothers to feel
And I know I was my father's favorite.
neglected.
Were you also the oldest child?
The younger.
The
I had an older
younger.
sister.
Huh.
But she was probably because
Well,
she
she was
wasn't
out of
with
the
your
house.
father for
Yeah.
those when she was
Yeah.
a young child. She was only with her mother in Italy. Right?
Yeah, right. And then,
And when we were first married, my mother would come to my house and she'd look me over and say, you don't look so good. I said, what do you mean? She says, is she feeding you right? You don't look right to me. I says, I'm eating very good and don't say anything in front of Mary. Like
I don't believe this because he gained 50 pounds the first year we were married.
Boy, did I put it on.
50 pounds was.
I was a skinny kid.
You put on 50 pounds. Now, how could I?
And she would say, I just don't say that, Mom.
All his clothes didn't fit him anymore. 50 pounds,
Yeah.
5 sizes, you know.
Did your mother-in-law ever say anything in front of you? Like when he told her that don't mention
I
in
didn't
front
even
of
know
Mary,
this.
you
I
didn't
don't know if
even.
he's making this up
No,
or not.
this is what she would tell me.
Yeah, but I don't know about it.
Well, I
She
didn't
never-
want you to know about it.
She never said it in front of me, but that was
I didn't know
at the
about it.
beginning, you know, when you first get married, you're worried about
That's the way
you're getting
parents are.
along, you
Yeah.
know.
Parents are this way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but when she got to know me and got she
Yeah.
just come to my house very freely without even being invited, you know, she felt very, very comfortable being with me.
They were well treated.
Now did you?
Waited on.
Now did you ever say things like that to Frank once he got married to make sure that Gail was
I
taking
didn't
care of
see him.
her?
I didn't see
We
him
didn't
that
see
much.
him anymore.
He went to Vermont. That was it. And I had to wait months before I saw him. You know, it was a different story altogether.
What about Charlie,
Charles,
the baby?
up from his place of work. And he would say, Mom, you have any veal cutlet sandwich? Veal cutlet sandwiches? Do you want to bring me some out? I think I have to think and see what I have in the freezer because, I mean, who has veal cutlets? It was a restaurant. So I would look in the freezer, of course, if I had some, and I would get them ready for him, and I would bring it over to the station.
He didn't know he was married then.
He
come
didn't
over.
realize that he still had, he thought he was still single.
Yeah.
Well,
I didn't want to disappoint him, you know. If I could have done it, I did it.
Yeah.
That's it. I remember bringing him a heart-shaped cake for Valentine's Day that I had just made. I said, go home with this cake and have it together with your wife. Well, she was, you know, of course, maybe she felt intimidated, like as if I'm showing off or something. I mean, this was me. I mean,
Yeah.
I did it with an act of love, you know. I didn't
Yeah.
do it with showing her up or anything because it seemed like I didn't want to hurt her feelings. It's just I wanted
Yeah.
to spread my love around, you know. I don't know. It was taken up probably the wrong way. I hope it wasn't, but I think it was at the time.
well, Grandma, I know that I know how Charlie feels because when I leave from Christmas after eating you and Frank's cooking, it's hard for me to eat anything else. Although my wife is an excellent cook because
Yeah,
she's
man,
learned her
I
ways.
that.
You bet. And
Yeah,
that was a good
okay.
addition.
See, I got it right
That
on
was a
tape
good
there.
addition.
I think we're out of tape. We're
We're out of
getting real
Oh, I had
close.
one more question. No, you
Okay.
don't have to have it on tape.
Go ahead,
Doesn't
it's just
matter.
flashing.
I want to know if either one of you are named after people in your family or just names people pick. You know, your parents just
No,
picked a name.
in our days we were named after people in our family. I was named after my father's father, my grandfather,
Oh, okay.
John. And there are a lot of Johns. All the firstborn males
Oh.
were named Johns.
Because your mother had 10 brothers and sisters, and they
Right.
all named
Each
her
one of
first.
them.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. What
And
about
then my
your
father had about 6 brothers and 6 or 7.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, all the firstborns were named John. In your family,
My
Charles?
Yeah, Charles was my father. That's why I have a son named Charles. And my firstborn was named after
Yeah.
his father.
That was the custom then.
That was
You didn't
the
get a
tradition
book
we
or
had.
anything to
Yeah.
find out what to put.
You didn't look at any books.
Yeah.
It was a big insult if you didn't do that.
Oh, yes, and they loved it.
And I got my friend Nunzio, you know, he's dying. And he's going by the old-fashioned way. He says, my oldest son, who lives in Massachusetts, he says, I'm leaving everything to him to take care of my affairs.
Grandson, did you say?
No, his son,
Oh,
Philip.
oh,
He
yes.
says, I says, Philip is not here. He's in Massachusetts. How can, he says, that's the way it goes. He says, he's my oldest son. He's gonna take care of my financial affairs. Whether he's capable of it or not, doesn't matter. He's the oldest
Yeah,
son.
that's the way that they do it.
Yeah.
And what about you, Grandma? Were you named
Well,
after?
I must have been named after my mother's mother. I really didn't know them, but I don't know too much about it.
And you named Aunt Joe after your sister?
My mother,
Oh, your
my
mother?
mother's name is Josephine.
Oh, okay. And so
I
you're...
took Joe for Josephine.
Uh-huh.
St. Anne for giving me a little girl.
Okay. That's. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
You have more?
It'll run out when it runs out. It's flashing at me now, so I don't know. When it stops, it stops. If there's anything else.
Hopefully,
We have a
I
beautiful
hope,
family.
you know, that you can get an idea of who we are.
Yeah.
That's right.
Kids could,
Well, we
you
know, but,
so.
you know, we want to...
We're proud of our families, our heritage,
Yeah.
and we're proud of our own family that we have a beautiful three